Okay, we're going to go through really quickly how to create a little Jam.py grid application. Hosting this at A2 on a little VPS server running Ubuntu 20.04. First thing we're going to do is create a tmux session. Create a new session here, and we'll just call it Jam Demo. Okay, so now we've got a session. We're going to create a Python environment, Unix or Linux, so Python 3/mvenv, and we'll call it also Jam Demo, and change into Jam Demo, and we will run source bin /activate to create the session. We've got Jam Demo session now, and there we will pip install Jam.py, and you'll see here that in the bin directory we have this Jam project.py. We'll run that with Python 3. So Python 3. Jam.py also actually does run with Python 2.7, so even if you're on a really old environment, you can do it. But here at Python 3, and we'll run Jam project, and that's actually in the bin directory. Okay, and what that does is it creates a bunch of files and folders in this directory, the most important of which right now is server.py. If we run Python 3 and server.py, that will run Jam.py server. And I'm going to stop that with Control-C, and we're going to run that at a different port. We'll try 8086. Okay, so now that's running on port 8086. The domain it's running on is this app stage host. So I'm creating a new application here. The application is going to run at that port at our domain. Right now, there's no application there. So what we're going to do to build the application, to build this little grid, is go to builder.html. And when you start a new project, it'll ask you to choose a language. We have some setup here to do. So select English, and we'll give this a name, and the name of the project needs to be valid Python. And we choose a database type. SQLite is built in, but you can see it runs on all these other databases too. You do need to have the Python driver pip installed in order to use those databases. So give this database name. We'll call it Jam Demo. Let's see here. Let's move a little bit on my screen. Okay. Now we've got a project, and this is the app builder. It looks really simple, but there's a lot of power here. First thing we're going to do is create a data table. So we create the schema in the table. For creating a lookup table, we're going to create a catalog. Arrange my screen over here. So we're going to create a new table. We'll call that table. What we're going to do here is create a list of favorite foods for our users. Favorite foods, and you can see it'll give a valid Python name and a valid SQL database table name. A bunch of other things we can do here, but what's important right now is that we create some columns. So the first column here is going to just be the name of the food, and that's going to be type text. And we'll create another column for that table, and we'll call that ingredients for the food. And we'll create a valid Python, that'll also be text here. And so now we've got a little application started. And by default, we refresh this, you're going to see we have now a interface for the favorite foods table. There is a grid automatically built, and we can start entering values into that table. Enter a new value for this food, which is, let's say, pizza. We'll say that has cheese, dough, and tomatoes. Okay, and let's add another. I'll say favorite food is chocolate. Go to the ingredients for that. And let's add one more called apple. Some healthy. Okay, so we've got a little database. You see if you refresh the page, those values are being saved in the database. Okay, so we'll go back to our builder, and what we're going to do now is build a another table that uses values in the catalog, in the favorite foods catalog, the favorite foods table, as lookups. So we're going to go to journals and create a new table. We'll call this persons. Again, you can see it creates a valid Python name and a SQL name for the table. Creates a primary key field, which is an ID number, and we're going to start adding some columns to this. So let's say the first column is first name. First name creates a valid Python name for that. Description can be anything you want it to be, but the name has to be valid Python. So we'll make this last name, and that's also going to be some text. We'll make this required, so the user has to enter that value. Let's have a birthday. And we'll make that a date value, and we'll set the default value as the current time. So something appears there. And let's add, let's see, we'll put a photo field. So let's do this photo, and we'll make that a image. And then we're going to have their favorite food, which will be looked up from the other table. So we're going to go here and add a favorite food column. And instead of adding a column to this with a certain type to this table, we're going to look this value up from another table. So we're going to look up an item from the favorite foods table, and the field that we're going to look up, the column we're going to look up to be displayed is the food. I'm going to select type ahead. That way, if I start typing something like apple or pizza, anything that matches what you've begun typing will sort of autocomplete, and you can see all the values which match. So we're good there. Now, if we go back to our application, we've got now a catalog, which is just a sort of simple table, and a journal, which has some lookups. It uses values from those lookups. So I'm going to refresh this, and blammo, you can see we've got a nice grid interface now for first name, last name, birthday, photo, and favorite food. And we can start adding some values. So first name, let's make this Joe. And if we leave this empty, you're going to see here, it's going to tell us we need to enter something. We can edit a date here. Let's go back a ways. 1991. And so you can edit everything right here in the editor, or you can type in values. Okay, if we click on the photo, since we set that to be an image, we're going to be able to upload an image. And we can set the favorite food for this user by picking a value from the favorite foods table. And you can see here it says last name value is required because we set that as required. So enter, and there we go. We've got an entry here. Now that doesn't show very well, so what we're going to do is go back to this this journal, and we'll make some changes to how things are displayed. I'm going to add one more little field here since we're editing it. We'll call this just a notes field, so we can add some notes. Let's make that a long text field, so add as much as we want. Okay, good. So now that up here, you can see the edited changes up here, over here. Okay, so go back over to our journal, and we're going to look at the form that's displayed. So this allows us to adjust how things are displayed in the grid. So right now, we're showing these values in this order. Let's say we want to put the last name first in the grid, and I want that photo maybe to be over one column. And you can see that the photo doesn't show very well, so let's do some things here to adjust that. I'm going to make that take up 2 rows. Let's freeze the first column. so that as we scroll on a smaller screen, that last name column shows up and always shows on the left-hand side. And actually, number of rows, we want to show maybe 5 rows, and we want to see 2 lines, 2 vertical lines. And when we select a row, we will show 3 lines. So let's just take a look at that. Let's also make this striped. Oh, and here, since we're doing this, let's say we want to sort on all of the fields except the photo and the notes. Okay, so those are going to be little easily selectable columns that you can sort on. So let's refresh this. You can see now we've got a little bit larger view. Still not quite enough to see this photo, so we'll make some changes, but you can see you can now sort up or down. And in fact, we can sort on multiple columns at the same time by clicking the Control key. So we'll do a little bit of that here, but it looks like we need to adjust the way this looks a little bit more. So we're going to go to this field. We're going to look at the photo column, and we're going to look at the interface, and we'll say we want that height. You can also, by the way, select from camera. And let's say we want the height to just be 100. We won't set a width, so it'll resize that. So now when we pull this up, we've now set that field to look a little different. Now a smaller image, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and save this whole thing. Okay, so now refresh our page, and it's only 100. That fits a little more nicely. So let's go ahead and add some more values here. See what names we had in the previous example. Bill Billman. Let's give him a date. We can type it right in if we want. Let's say he's born in 5 of 1962. Image here we can use for Bill Billman. And let's give him a favorite food of chocolate. And give some notes that says, for example, smoke in there. I think I put like smokes camels in the previous example. So now you can see I changed these row heights so that they, when they're selected, they show 3 rows instead of 2, and when they're not selected, they show 2. That makes it a little bit easier. Let's go back and tweak that a little bit more. I'm going to adjust this form one more time. And let's say the row lines are actually 3, and selected row lines are 4. Let's see how that looks. If it doesn't work, maybe we'll change the size of the image. Ooh, that looks a little better. Yeah, that's starting to look a little better. Maybe I'll actually turn that image down, the size of the image down just a little bit. So how it shows here in the interface is maybe just a little smaller. Make that 60 pixels. And let's see how that looks now. Here we can actually see that. I think we can actually make the rows a little smaller. So you can adjust this grid how you need. And I'm going to adjust that form one more time. And let's say we actually want to put that first name up, move things around, and I also want to show the ID. So we have our sorts all worked out, and we'll change these row lines to 2 again, these selected row lines to 3 now that the image is smaller. And we're going to set the initial sort order. We'll say we want the first thing to be first name, and we want the second sort to be last name. So what that'll do is it will sort the whole database that by this column, and then if there are any names that are the same, it'll within those names sort by last name. Okay, so we can add as many sort columns as we want. So multi-sort there. Now you can see when this comes up, we have a little multi-sort. And you can see that there's a first name sort, and we also have a last name sort within that. Okay, so let's continue with this. I'm going to add a few more entries. I don't remember the names that I gave here, but maybe Tom Townsend, and we'll select a date from way back. Let's make that 21st of September, so you can just type it in, or you can add it. We'll add a, here do I have, I do not, here we go, Tom Thompson, and let's just give him a favorite food of apple, and some notes. He looks like that guy was the most interesting man in the world. Okay, so we've got some more fields. Let's create another Joe. We have a Joe Blow. Let's create a Joe Schmo. Just so we have a few Joes in here. Schmo. Let's go back a few years. Make him a little bit younger. And that'll work. Let's also give him a food and just this. I have no note for him right now, but that's okay. So now we got some people. We do need a photo for him, so let's go back and edit his rows. Here we go. Schmo. He is better looking than everyone. Cool. Okay, starting to come along now. We can look at these people's rows and bring up their records and edit their records. Let's give him. He looks like he smiles a lot. Okay, so have a nice little interface going here, and we can just choose to sort as we want, and we can sort first, for example, by first name, up or down, and then if we want to sort those names within the Joes, we can do that. So we have a first sort column, first names going down, and then within the Joes, we're sorting those up or down. And we could choose the same thing. We could get these first names and sort the birthdays within those Joes. Or we could choose to sort first by favorite food. So let's say we have pizza, and we could sort all the birthdays within those that are grouped. Now we could do something else that's really useful in general in working with the data, which is to add filters. So we will add a filter here. A new filter, and what we're going to do is filter on, for example, the favorite food column. And what we're going to do is I want to make a filter where we can filter out items, rows that are not contained or that don't contain a certain value. So let's go back here. We have this filter now. Refresh your app. You can see we get a filter out at the top, and that little filter we just did added. So we can say we want to take rows don't include pizza. Let's do that, and you can see that filters out any rows that have pizza. We could also do the same thing with chocolate and add that to the filter and apply it, and it gets rid of all the rows that have chocolate. Now we can make as many of these filters as we want, clear the filter, so on. Let's make another filter, and let's say we want to filter out the name, or we'll filter. Let's see here, what can we do here? Actually, let's take ID. So the record ID is less than whatever we type in. Okay, so now we've got a multiple filter. Go back to our application, refresh it, and you can see now we have two filters added to this. So we can choose to remove any items that have pizza as the favorite food, and also where the record ID is less than 3. There we go. and that's what we get filtered out. We can remove, for example, this record ID and only have the pizza one. So you can see we've gotten rid of the rows that have pizza and as the favorite food, and now we want to take records that are less than 3, for example, and that gets rid of the records. Only shows records that are less than 3, and clear them as we need, because many of these filters and put as many values in as we need. Plus we can do a really basic filter up here if we want to have first names that have the letter O in them, or letter OE. You can see over here we're sort of filtering as we go. Or let's say we want to filter for notes, have the letter S, SM, and then SMO. We keep typing until we get a perfect match. And of course you can combine that with our built-in filters, the ones that we've added to the application. So let's only search for, we'll include this filter that says not in this group. That was our filter, was not in, so took away everything that had to do with, that had apples. And then within there, we could again search within those results, and we get more able to search the database for the records we want, and build those filters and have as many of them as we want and use as many of them as we need to be able to sort or filter out. And then we can, of course, sort those results, multi-sort them. This gives really, really powerful ability to create a schema that holds a certain kind of information, and then to enter data into that database, and then to search, sort, and filter values, and of course to look at them in a detailed view. There's also the ability to add details columns, so you can add additional multiple column values, and add those detail column values directly to your journals. So you can sort more information inside each record. One of the other features here, important features, is that we have authorization. So by default, there is one user for each application. User's admin, name is admin, the password is 111. So if we go into this parameters section, you can see the language we chose and some of the other things you can do, session timeout and so on. Other features in the app we can adjust there. We can adjust this thing called safe mode. So safe mode is a mode where you're required to log in to the application. So now if we adjust this, it's going to make us log in to the application. Remember that default password is admin and password is 111. So that's true of the builder interface, and it's also true of the application interface. So we go here now, and we have to log in to use the app. So we do this, go back here, and we can start to build a group of users and roles. Let's add another role. We have this admin role. Basically, admin can do everything with everything, including using the application builder. And we can also give view, create, edit, and delete permissions for each of the tables in the database. So let's create a new one here. We'll call it employee. And we'll give that the employee the ability to view, create, and edit, but not delete items in each of those tables. In fact, let's take away the ability to edit catalogs and create catalogs. So we can view them, but we can't do any editing. For journals, we can do everything but delete. So that's a role. Now we can create a user. Let's create a new user here, and we'll call that person Joe Blow. And I'll make their login joe@blow.com. And this could be anything. It doesn't have to be an email or password. It can just be a word or anything else. And make their password 1234. And for their role, we will select employee. So they will only have the ability to interact with the features that we gave them capability to interact with. And we're choosing not to make them administrators so they can log into this application. So we're going to go back to this page. We're going to reload. Next, we're going to log out the administrator. So now if we want to log in again, let's do this joe@low.com, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we can go here. If we go to the favorite foods table, you're going to see we can't delete, we can't add, we can't edit. We did give him the ability to edit. Or did we not? No, we didn't give him the ability to edit. So he can't do anything there except use. He can read this, but he can't use it. So the other thing we did here was we didn't give him permission to delete. That role that he is assigned to doesn't have the ability to delete any values. He can go in, he can add new. So I don't know what here we're just gonna see, I think I have a Aunt Jill Chow. Let's take that name and give her a favorite food. So you can see we can add information for her, but we cannot, as this user, delete any rows. Okay, so it's a pretty quick introduction to how we can work with a lot of the features. Really importantly, this system has the ability to automatically track history. What that does is it creates an audit trail of every single change that's made to any value in the database, or you can selectively choose which things you want to have saved, and records who made the change and when they made the change and what values they edited, and you can see that entire history, which is really important for making applications that require audit histories for accounting, for HIPAA applications, healthcare applications. And so this does all that automatically. It also has a soft delete feature, so for those sorts of applications that need to have history, we don't want to delete records that existed at one point. We want to keep those in the database, but we don't want them cluttering up. If we want to actually delete a person from views in the data table, we can just, by default, it's set this way, we can click the soft delete. And what that will do is it will remove the record, the row in any table from any views that are shown, automatically do that, but not delete that record from the database, just sets a flag on that row saying that it's removed. So there's some really, really important features that are very time-consuming to build in normal database applications. Together with the authentication, those soft delete and audit trail history features are incredibly useful. We also have the ability here to create reports. We can create a report, and the way this works is we have to create a file in an open office, and we give that template name, and then we can fill in values in that layout, and it prints out to the it's basically a spreadsheet layout that anybody can do visually, and then you fill in the values in that spreadsheet with values from the data table. So really, really simple to create reports, and then when we have a report, we can assign that report to any of the tables. Cover that in another video. You've seen the filters. Details we'll cover in another video. That's another fairly complex thing, so that'll happen in the next video. And a couple more really important things here. What we're going to do is show just a little basically how to deal with code. So this is actually an IDE with a code editor, and you can adjust the client code, and you can also adjust the server code. So I'm going to do something here where I've got some pre-made little functions here that kind of come from the documentation. So built in to this whole system, we have a server module in the back, a Python file for each of the pages, and we can type in any valid Python write functions that can be called from the front end or run when certain events occur. And we also have a set of files that we can create and events that we can deal with on the front end. So the events are jQuery events, and the front end uses Bootstrap, so we can access all that stuff and just write regular JavaScript, HTML, CSS code here. So we're going to write this, add this little function, and so you can see it has this little helper. If we want to respond to this little event, it will automatically put that and add that in here, so we don't have to remember what the name of that event is. So, if we have a validation or a form close event happen or a filter event happen, we can respond to all those things and write some JavaScript code that lets us deal with that. So here, basically this happens for every time a field is populated in the grid view. And so we have a little conditional here that says if the field's name is first name and if the field value is Joe, then what we're going to do is set that value to be this. We're going to take the display text and wrap it in a little bit of HTML just to show a italicized character. So let's run that. I'm going to go ahead and save this text. We have some little nice things here too. You can look at the sort of autocomplete, simple autocomplete that lets you just pick out things. You can also do stuff like use control and / and you can comment out lines and uncome out lines. And you can look at the tasks. So that if you don't have to remember what the names of things are or how they're represented here. You can get the favorite food name and so on. So those are all our names of things that are in the application. Okay, so what we've done here is we've opened up the client module for that form, and we've got a little bit of code that's responding to this event, and we're going to make sure that's saved. Go back to our application now. Look at these Joes in our new application, and they're italicized. So let's go ahead and get rid of that, comment it out, save it, and run this again. You can see that code is no longer running. We can do just about anything we want here. You can import a library as you need. There is a HTML file you can use as index. You see all the libraries that are loaded here as this default index. So you have an index HTML file. You can do things when the document's ready and so on. But just to respond to events, really simple for each of these client server modules. We can add some event handling code. So let's go back to our journals. And what we're going to do here, we also have for each of these tasks that are in the application, all these little grids that we have, and all these database sort of self-built modules that are reacting and dealing with the database. We have these client and server modules. So the server module can deal with data in the database, and the client module can deal with data in the database in the same way. And this little function here, I kind of combined a little bit of everything. And so I have a front end JavaScript bit that is going to respond. It's going to respond to the event on view form created. So when the form is created on screen, and let's go back to this. I'm going to run a Python function on the server. So we're going to put this in our server code. So this is Python server code, and this can be any valid Python. So you can import libraries and interact with the operating system do anything that's possible with the wild world of Python and that massive ecosystem. I'm going to save this. So now I have a function called myServerFunction. It takes a couple parameters, including a string that we're going to pass from the front end. The first thing it's going to do when the function runs is just print that string. So we're going to see that in the console on the server. And then we're going to create a little variable called list of people. It's a string. We're going to open, the item refers to the stuff that's in the grid. We're going to open that, and then for the, we're going to call a person in each row of that grid, an item. We're going to add to this list of people a concatenated string, which is going to be the person's record number and the first name value and the last name value, and I'm going to put a little comma at the end. And then we're going to return that. So we're going to call this from this function from the front end, and we're going to return that concatenated list of people, which is basically the record number, first name, and last name of each person in the grid. So that item refers basically to the grid. Open it and then deal with it. That's how we deal with all of these items that are in the database on the current page. And then if you look at this JavaScript code, so it's JavaScript, pure JavaScript, and we have some jQuery and Bootstrap that we can work with on the front end. So we're creating a variable called print button, and we're going to do a couple things here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add to this screen a button that says print, and we're going to give it a little icon. And when the print button is clicked, we're going to run this function, which basically just prints the screen, prints the item. That's a built-in function on the in the jQuery code. And then we're going to add another button. So we're creating a variable called function button, and what that's going to do is return what's returned when we add a button to the screen. That button's going to say run functions on the button, and then it's going to be of type primary, where this was just a button that had an icon on it. And when that button is clicked, so when the function button is clicked, we're going to run this function. Do a few things here. First of all, we're going to create a little list, just a list object. Then we're going to open, just like we did on the back end, we're going to open the database values that are shown on the screen. So item refers to that. And then we're going to go through each one of those rows, assign the value P to that, and we're going to add that value to the list name we created here. And what we're going to do is add the notes value. So this is just going to loop through all the rows and take the notes value and add it to this little list we created called list from the front end. Then we're going to create a string and convert that list, join them all together to create a string separated by commas. And then we're going to call the server function. So we have using this page's server code, we're going to call myServerFunction, which we wrote over here in the persons.py code. That's that running on the server. And we're going to pass the string that we created from the front end, which is that string version of that list. And we're going to get back a result or an error. And we're not going to deal with the error right now, but we're just going to alert the result. We're going to concatenate the text, all notes with a semicolon there, and then we're going to also add the string from the front end. This is doing a whole bunch of stuff. It's kind of showing you how we interact with stuff on the screen, and it's also showing you how we add some buttons, and we can make those buttons have functions that respond. And in this case, we're also calling a server function that does some things, which first will include printing the string on the server, and then doing a bunch of Python. Now this Python could include any Python, so this is a massively powerful capability here. Right now we're just concatenating some strings, but we could, for example, load a library that does document generation and create PDF files and save them, and load a library that can send emails or interact with another server that has an API, and just do anything that we can do in Python on the back end, and then return the results to the front end. And both the front end and the back end can deal with the current page's database items. So we can go through the items that are on that current page. The back end can do that, and the front end can do that using this little item. And there's other ways to deal with these database structures, but this is just sort of a basic idea. So here we've got a front end function, a couple front end functions, one that's just going to print the page, another one that when the button is clicked is going to create its own list from the stuff on the database, taking out pieces, the notes, and then also call the server function for that page called myServerFunction, send it a bunch of information, have the server do some things with that on the server, and then return some values that it puts together, and then display that on screen. So that is really quite a bit. Save that, refresh, and you can see now we get two little buttons here that are added. One, print button, has that little icon, prints the page. And we can save that as a PDF or print it out to a printer. And then I have this button that I created called Run Functions. We're going to run that, and you can see it's done everything on the front end that we wanted. It's also, let's run that again, it's also collected the full list of all the notes. And if we look on the server, we printed out all those things on the server just to show you that that code, the Python code, is actually running on the server. And in this front end code, we could, in the JavaScript code, we could also import any sort of library that we want, and use the use a library, for example, if we want charting and to create charts and graphs in any way that we want, or if we want to put mermaid diagrams, or if we want to include a 3D game library that we can interact with buttons on the screen, and have a virtual reality thing pop up every time we do something with a database interaction, or if we want to have a sound recorder, that sort of thing. We can just pop that sort of standard JavaScript, Git code that works, and pop it into these front end pieces. Have that code respond to events or to button clicks, and use your imagination from there. That's how software development works in just about any kind of framework. Really, really simple to do here, and very importantly, it all happens within the browser. We don't need any more tools. This takes, as you saw, just a minute or so to install, and we've got a full IDE that builds very nice looking, professional looking CRUD grids that are responsive and work nicely on mobile, respond as expected on a mobile device. We can sort, multi-sort, and filter, and you have some basic filtering built in. We can build any filters we need. We can deal with files. We can upload files here. We can upload photos. We can generate reports. We can include multiple bits of information. We can add to the UI and include any JavaScript, Bootstrap, jQuery, or any other libraries that we want to import. Have them run on the front end. We can have all that code run on the back end, and both the front end and back end have access to what is on the screen. We can pick out values from that data and do things with that data. And all of this happens within an IDE that runs entirely in the browser. You can run basically anywhere. And you have a lot more features here. For example, we can click on the database tab, and we could switch this to another database. As long as you have the Python driver installed, pip install for any of these, all the big databases, basically all of them, Postgres, SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, Firebird, and of course built-in SQLite, which is portable. And since this is all built within the browser, we can click on export, and that entire project gets saved. We can install this framework on another system, click import, and blammo, we've got a way to re-instantiate that application, and all of the metadata, and all of the schema everything else that is in the project, all of the roles and the authentication, information that we need to grant access to the application. And when you download this, if you download that zip file, you can also just transfer the SQL file, so all of the data goes with it. And really importantly, you can use this to build schema, but you can also, if you set the database in DB manual mode, connect to a database, put in the information you need to connect to it, the host, the port, login information, username, and password. You can then connect to existing schema. When you do that, when you go to create a catalog, what will happen is it will show you a list. You can click on an import button, and it will let you import any of the existing tables and schema and access all the data and edit all the data in that existing schema. So really, really powerful system for dealing with databases. And you don't need to use any code to do any of the really basic CRUD stuff. So being able to deal with the data in the database, as you can see, is really, really simple. You can reliably and easily build schema. You can reliably and easily build filters and sorts according to any sort of queries you'd have to build with SQL. And of course, you can use another system to interact with that same database. I use this with SQL Page, and I have some examples where I put SQL Page code together with this, but it could be any other. I use Anvil also in Python, and I can just include these applications as what do we call? I'm trying to look here for an example of that. I don't have an example offhand, but we can include these examples as iframes and integrate them directly in other applications that are also working with the same databases. And so this is a really nice way to give even users who have absolutely no coding ability the ability to reliably and safely build interfaces that interact with a database that other pieces of application that can also connect to that database can work with. And it also reliably and safely and easily allows you to add authorization and some really, really useful features like audit logging, history, and soft deletes. So those are things that happen over and over in software development and take a lot of time to do well and to do reliably. Usually there's a lot of just CRUD work that you have to do, and that typically involves doing a lot of debugging and making sure you're doing everything right. And even in the simplest systems, there's a lot of code that goes into doing that. And this just gives you a really simple interface. Whether you're an absolute beginner who has never used a database before, done any SQL or any other sort of programming, you can build a useful interface to a database with a lot of the features that are required to deal with data. And if you have some skill developing in any other, you just use any other web development system, you can use this to just insert those features in an existing application, so you don't have to do the hard work of building grids and building schema. You can do that all very simply. So any non-coder or someone who has ability in any system can integrate this very easily in an application. And then if you're a pro coder, you can deal with the code and write any JavaScript or any Python that extends these capabilities in any way that is useful to you. And of course, we have some features for building reports that are actually really, really powerful. We'll cover that in another video. So I think that's enough to get you going here, get an idea what you can do with this. In the next video, I'll cover a little more about reports, cover a little bit more about how we use this details feature, which is actually really useful to build out what you can put in rows. And we'll cover how to include this in another application and interact with the same database. So it appears just as a single application, but actually uses Jam.py for its features, and then uses the features of the other framework to do things that you can't do in Jam.py. And together that makes for a super productive set of tools that can really accomplish just about anything you need to do in any situation when you're dealing with applications that accomplish real work. So we'll stop there and cover all of that in the next video.